CNBC TV 18 Weekender.
Welcome back to the CNBC TV 18 Weekender show. I'm in conversation with Ram Guha. Has just come out with his latest book, Democrats and Dissenters. Ram Guha, let's take the conversation from where we left off. You know, today suddenly the term liberal has acquired this very negative connotation. I remember in one of your earlier books, I think you were quoting one of your professors who had said, "Why are liberals such a supine lot?"
Yeah.
Is that partly the problem that suddenly, this liberal hypocrisy that we've seen over the years? You mentioned Shabano case, and there have been several others also. We've reached a point where where the rest of the population is somewhat disgusted by the hypocrisy that they've displayed over the years.
So I think the Congress reduced liberalism to appeasement of different groups, Islamic fundamentalism being one of them, rather than standing in an impartial and objective and fearless way for the values of the Constitution. That's true. But liberals have been mocked for a very long time. Today, it's the right wing who mocks the liberals. I am old enough to remember a time when the main critics of the liberals were the Marxists and the leftists. Because liberals are regarded as middle of the road, incremental. The Marxists said they are delaying the revolution. So hence they are agents of the bourgeoisie, even whether they recognize it or not. Today we are told that we are not loyal enough to the state or to the Tiranga Jhanda or to Bharat Mata. So liberals have always been uncomfortably placed between, as Isaiah Berlin once said, the hard faces on the left and the hard faces on the right. And because they are uncomfortably placed, they are regarded as too left-wing by the rightists, too right-wing by the leftists. They are nervous and hesitant. And I have always argued that liberals must take out their position clearly, defend the middle ground, fearlessly and sometimes polemically. Because I think a country like India, with its diversities, its disparities, its size, its heterogeneity, can only be run through accommodation, through compromise, through dialogue, which is the path of the liberal. India cannot be made a Hindu state, it cannot be made a Naxalite Maoist state, it can't be made a military dictatorship. And I think liberalism, the path of the middle road, which is what Mahatma Gandhi followed, which is taking everyone along. Even if Ambedkar is your bitterest critic, listen to him. Change your views if his criticisms have merit. Bring him into the government as they did it famously in 1937.
Because one area where people have, there's been general disillusion with the liberal stand is on the issue of uniform civil code. You're one of the few intellectuals. You have openly said that how there needs to be uniform civil code. Why this unease, Ram? Just because the right wing supports this? Is it suddenly it's unpalatable to most?
Yeah, because the BJP says we are for a uniform civil code, you become knee-jerk reactions against it. And I think it is truly appalling. The reluctance of liberals and leftists who historically have stood for gender equality. The reason that women have the vote is that socialists fought for it, along with the suffragette movement in Europe. The Jawaharlal Nehru, a socialist, wanted women to have the vote, right? Ambedkar and Nehru would have been appalled by the liberal position on the Uniform Civil Code today. They wanted it in the 50s, they were hesitant at that stage, and now, it's too polarized and too poisonous. But the most pernicious practices, triple talaq, polygamy, must go. And the kind of specious arguments of the leftists, that although the Hindu law abolishes polygamy,
but there's still
in
discrimination.
Or in private they're still practicing. I find this deeply unhelpful and dissatisfying. I think the liberal or leftist position on a common civil code violates their entire history. Because liberals and leftists have always stood for gender equality. It's the right wing, it's the patriarchy, it's the religious heads who have said women cannot read the Vedas, women cannot choose their husbands. And and it's truly bizarre that today it's the right wing that is defending a common civil code and the left wing that is attacking.
Ideally it should be the other way around. Where the fact is, Ram, because you're somebody who says it the way it is, and I want to ask you this question because about the state of Muslims in India today. All right, we've seen a sort of reformation happening after independence as far as Hindu personal law is concerned back in the 1950s. Have we seen an equivalent of that among the Muslims? And do you think the problem is today Muslims don't have a politician like Abdul Kalam Azad that you had, who always had the message of peace and reconciliation, not a message of negativity and sort of ostracization?
Absolutely. I think there's been no credible, influential, liberal Muslim voice. in my book Makers of Modern India, which is an anthology of 19 thinkers, my last thinker in that anthology is Hamid Dalwai, who was a Muslim liberal writing in the 60s, saying if Muslims don't become modern, if they don't become more open to the complex changes of the 20th century, if they don't embrace science, reason, gender equality, you will see a rise of right-wing Hindu fundamentalism. And that was prophetic. I mean, essentially,
yeah, I mean, he could
see in the 70s, he could see what happened to the Babri Masjid. And I think the failure of even modern cosmopolitan Muslim politicians, like Salman Khurshid, educated at Oxford, Omar Abdullah, who is so eloquent in many things. The failure of people like Salman Khurshid and Omar Abdullah to speak in favor of gender equality, I think is distressing. It means that they, like so many other politicians, have kowtowed to the fundamentalists.
Let's slip into a final break now here on the CNBC TV 18 Weekender. When we come back, we're going to speak with Ram about politics of today.
I said that if the Congress reinvents itself and it sets a dynasty, it may have a future. Now I'm clear the Congress has no future.
CNBC TV 18 Weekender.